Hi, my friends. Welcome. This is the Back to Me podcast, and this is Heather, and I am super excited that you're here. You are going to hear some tips and some tricks and some ideas to help you live your happiest and healthiest self. I call it Back to Me because when you are taking care of yourself, back to me, then you can take better care of others, and we can all make the world a better place. This is Wellness Your Way, and I am super happy that you're here. Before we jump into this week's episode, I wanted to jump in here and tell you something really exciting that has happened for me. And I don't know if you are on my email list or if you have seen me posting about this, but I recently was featured in the national media, not one, not two, but 3 times. And I am super excited that this has happened and that the word is getting out there about what I'm trying to do to help the world and help you. If you go to my website, heatherstewart.coach, and you go to press, Press, it'll give you the links to those articles and you can have a look at them. And if you know someone who can benefit, please share this because I am on a mission to go out and save the world one person at a time. Take care, my friend. See you soon. It's Friday. Hello, my friends. This is Heather. This is the Back to Me podcast. This is another amazing, epic episode to help you find tools and resources to help you live a more awesome life than you're already living. Because if you're listening to this podcast, obviously you're already an awesome human being. And yes, I believe it fully. And today I am talking with Rebecca. Oh my gosh, how do I say your last name, Rebecca?
Claeys. Like
Claeys.
ice, because I'm cool like that.
You are beyond cool. And I'm really glad I asked because I was going to not say that right. Claeys. Cool. It is cool. And welcome, my friend.
Thank you.
You have so many things. Oh my gosh, like you wrote a book and you have all these things going on, and we have talked a few times, but our guests have not heard from you yet. So the first thing that I'm always curious about and that I always want to share with everyone is what brought you down this road to, we're going to talk about the myth of productivity, we'll get to it, but what brought you into this space where you went from over there to where you are now?
Well,
whatever you want to share.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Heather. It's awesome to be here. I love the space that you have created. It's very calm and soothing. Much unlike the space that I was in about 4 years ago, when I got voluntold into working with my state's COVID-19 pandemic response. I worked for the Department of Health Services, and it was kind of an all hands on deck situation. I was not working in public health at the time, and I was just told, show up at this place at this time and they will tell you what to do. So I did. And, I really found that I thrived in that chaotic, hectic, flying by the seat of our pants, figuring out things as we go along and as new information comes in kind of environment. Most of my career had been very well planned out, very organized. You have a task, you do a task. You have routine tasks, you get them done, and you move forward. This was not like that at all. You had no idea what was going to, land on your plate every single morning. And I loved it. I loved the people I was working with. They were incredibly smart. They challenged me, which is not something I had experienced on a regular basis. And they were really warm, welcoming, loving people, which is another thing that you don't always see in a corporate environment. Right. So it was a great place for me to feel like I was growing and thriving. And I did it for a long time, like a couple of years. And right. I was doing 60 or 70 hours a week, 7 days a week.
That's crazy.
For that time, because viruses don't take weekends or holidays.
True.
And we were a small but mighty team. trying to respond to this massive issue on a statewide basis. It was really challenging, but it was also really fulfilling and really exhausting.
Yeah.
Um,
I just think about, like, I remember the beginning of COVID when
yeah,
thank you for doing all of that, by the way, because,
of
like, every
course.
day, I can't even imagine on your side what was going on because on like, when you weren't I mean, I was a massage therapist at the time, so I had stresses, but I wasn't allowed to treat people. So it was
Mhm,
just you were sitting back waiting for the latest news of what's happening
mhm.
today, what's happening today. So you trying to handle all of us coming at you, what's happening, right? No wonder you were working so much. And I guess this is where we get into that was too much.
It was. It wasn't at first. Like, I could
Right,
really handle it. I was doing a great job of juggling it. If it had been for only a year and a half, I probably could have come out of it pretty okay.
right,
But I didn't wanna leave because I loved that environment, and I didn't wanna go back to my old job because I'd kind of outgrown it and really didn't want to try to stuff myself back into a place I'd outgrown. I wanted to
right.
keep doing the things I was doing, but that meant I was going to still be burning the candle at both ends. Um, at one point during the response, I had been put in charge of the test registration and results delivery software for COVID-19 for the entire state.
Wow.
And when it was small, it was manageable. And then it blew up because of the work I was doing, and it became very unmanageable. And the software that we were using, while great for a small amount and what we expected it to be when we first started using it, uh, didn't handle the large volumes that we ended up seeing. We expected it to, get over fairly quickly.
2
Um,
months, they said, 2 months.
it didn't get over that quickly.
No,
So,
no.
unfortunately, yeah.
Wow.
Um, And so, yeah, I ended up working with the internal staff for the Division of Public Health inside the department and working with their software designers to create a new solution that would have more longevity, that would address a lot of the challenges that we had seen with the initial software while still retaining all of the really good things that we had in that software that helped make it so successful.
Right.
Um, and then moved my whole team into the Division of Public Health. So out of the response, right into Division of Public Health, where I wasn't necessarily working 60 to 70 hours a week anymore, but we were still doing COVID,
Right.
and we still had the same pressures. And I was tired.
You were
I was
tired going into that whole, like,
I was so tired.
right?
Like bone deep tired. You know the kind where you just like you're pretty sure it's never ever going to go away and nobody else in the world has ever felt this tired before. That's where I was.
I
And
love
like I
that.
couldn't
Not
yeah.
that you were tired, but that using that example of no one has ever felt this awful before makes you go,
Mhm.
"Oh, yeah, I've been there." Right?
Uh-huh.
So
Sometimes I feel
then
like I'm there now, but you know, it's okay to be there because that's a result of the pressures of our world.
mm,
It's not something that we do to ourselves. It's something that happens because of the world that we live in and how we were taught.
very much.
And what I learned was not only was I in deep burnout, but when I tried to find help for it, when I tried to read books or listen to podcasts or work with coaches or whatever, it maybe gave me 2 or 3 days worth of relief. All of the solutions that they gave me were really, really short lived. And then I was right back into that bone deep tired, that hopelessness that kind of goes along with it. And there was a point where I'm like, okay, this is just how life is now. This is how it's going to be for the rest of my life.
Right. Can I ask you a question about that?
Sure.
So was it so the things that gave you relief, was that just because you couldn't sustain it, or it wasn't getting down far enough into what was happening? Like, I just think about that, like, those
Yeah.
they gave you a little bit of relief, but
Yeah.
then you were back at it.
Yeah. So what I learned was when I finally picked myself up off the floor and decided, okay, this is not how it's going to be. I'm not going to leave it at this. I'm going to figure this out for myself, if for nothing else. I used my nursing skills and examined the problem and figured out that all of these things are teaching stress less. Focus on reducing your stress.
Right,
But stress is not the cause of burnout. And we've been sold that stress is the cause of our burnout. Stress isn't the cause of our burnout, it's a symptom.
right.
It's like taking a NyQuil for the flu and expecting that you're going to be better in the morning.
Right.
The NyQuil wears off.
So then, dun dun dun, what happened? Now I'm like, then what happened?
Okay, all right. So then what? All right. So I had to then figure out, okay, if this isn't the cause, something else obviously has to be the cause that this stress is a symptom of. And so that took a lot of digging and a lot of work with my therapist and a lot of work on my own. And what I finally began to understand was that the root cause was this thing I've now termed the myth of productivity. So I'm glad that that's what we're talking about today,
That's
because that's
totally what
kind
we're
of my
talking about.
thing. The myth of productivity is basically the idea that we have been taught since we were children that our personal worth, our value, what we have to offer the world is entirely connected to what and how much we produce.
Oh, yeah.
And it starts as children. We had a reading program here in my area where if you read a certain number of books as an elementary school student, you would get a little certificate that you could take into Pizza Hut, and they would give you a free personal pan pizza.
What? You know, I used to be a
Yeah,
waitress at Pizza Hut when I
it
was at
was a great
university.
program. This
Right.
was back in the 80s, so it's I don't know if it's still going on right now or not, but it was motivating for sure, right?
Well, you do understand, like, their logic of trying to encourage kids to read more,
Yes,
but
and
yes, and we don't use but, we use and,
I was a really good reader already.
right? How
I
many
was
pizzas
reading
did you get?
I had a stack of certificates like that. My parents did not cash them all in because every time we went to cash one in, of course, they had to buy a regular pizza to feed themselves,
Of course,
of course.
right,
So yeah, I had a stack of Book It Pizza Hut certificates. Um, because I could just crank through the books. I was already a good reader. I didn't need the program to motivate me, but
right,
boy, could I produce those numbers.
and you
And
were
I
quite
was
proud of your stack, weren't you?
not only that, but there was a chart in the classroom, and you got stars for every single book you read. And I just had rows and rows and rows of stars. I mean, it was like public recognition, it was that tangible reward. As a child, I was receiving this praise for all of this production that I was doing.
Right,
And it's not just the reading programs. There are so many ways that we teach our children that producing is rewarded.
right,
Not producing is not rewarded and, in fact, punished. And they internalize that. We internalized that.
So where is punished? Like, how can you give me an example of punished?
Sure. Um, what is a C? What is an average grade?
Oh yeah, I guess I see it. Like
A
A,
C would
B,
be an
C.
average grade,
Right.
right?
It's the middle of the road.
It's the middle of the road.
F is it
Do
fail.
average students get anything as far as assistance with, like, maybe higher education?
Not a chance.
No.
Right. Any like even if you're a B student, you're lucky if you get higher education. Right.
Right. The only ones who even have a chance of thinking about it are those ones at the top, at the
Right.
very top.
Hmm. Yeah, you are lesser than like just imagine report cards coming home with the C. Mom. Now it's interesting. I worked for this VP when I was an accountant, when I was in the corporate finance world. She was a senior VP, and she
Yeah,
said to me one day, because she was quite successful, she was stressed,
yeah.
stressed. Like when she went on vacation, she checked her emails every day. I said, Sharon, stop doing that. But she just said to me one day, I wish I'd been average because then I wouldn't have all this pressure.
Mhm.
Thought, wow, what a thing to say,
Yeah.
right? So punishment, but almost punishment in that you don't get recognized and you don't get that assistance, but almost like you're rewarded by you don't get the same stresses, maybe.
Yes, and if you
And
don't get the same rewards as far as access to higher education, you're not going
mm,
to get access to income to
right.
support your family, to be able to buy a house,
Yeah.
to buy a car when you need it, to not have to worry about the bills. So that productivity that we learn as children drastically impacts our ability to live as fully worthy human beings throughout the course of our entire lives.
Right.
There's steep rewards and punishments for productivity.
Yeah. And it's so entrenched in the world.
Mhm.
It's so entrenched. And I was just glanced down and I saw, the author of the book that you wrote, I'm assuming comes from that one, What Gives Way to Why, comes from that
Yeah,
experience.
it does. It absolutely does. And I've always asked why. Like, why has been a staple of my vocabulary for a really long time. But it wasn't until I really started digging into why I loved why so much that I started understanding how it was connected to productivity and to this myth.
Okay.
So,
And
yeah,
she keeps offering these cliffhangers to us. I don't know.
yeah. So, what I learned was this drive for productivity really focuses us on goals, things to
Mm,
be completed. There's a carrot dangling there in front of you, right? But it's attached to your head, so you're always walking forward trying to grab it. You can never quite reach it. The
right.
goalposts are always being moved. So those goals are a what? It's a thing to do. And this word that we throw around a lot right now, along with burnout, the other word that tends to go with it is purpose. People say, well, what's your
Follow your
purpose?
passion.
Follow your passion. Your purpose is the thing that you should be doing in your life. It's a goal, it's something to produce. Your
Another thing is
purpose,
just replacing like that production with another kind of producing.
exactly.
Damn it, Rebecca.
Right?
Jesus. Come
Right?
on.
And that's why I'm using the words what and why. Because when we really simplify it down to that, we can really see what is a what and what is a why. And we can separate them. And a
Okay.
what is anything that needs to be done. anything that is a goal, anything that's going to advance us in the current system. It is a thing to be produced that you would be rewarded for, theoretically, in our current society. But if I am going to get out of this cycle of burnout, I have to let go of the idea that my productivity is tied to who I am and how much I'm worth.
So that, and
I
it
have,
was it so entrenched. I mean,
mhm,
it's no wonder that it took a while.
yeah,
And I assume it's something you have to keep working on,
yeah, absolutely. It's not a one and done. It's a journey. It's
right?
not a destination. I know those are cliche words, but it's true. And if you're working on it, you can start to detach that idea that your productivity is tied to your personal worth. And when you do that, there's a hole there, there's a vacuum,
Okay.
and it's got to be filled with something. Otherwise, that what is going to come slamming back in, and it's going to be harder to pull it back out.
So you detach your I'm writing notes. You can see me
Mhm.
looking over here because I keep writing things down. So you're detaching your productivity from your personal worth, and then
Yeah.
so I assume the thing that has to come in to fill that space is the why,
Yes.
which some people are
Exactly.
trying to use as your purpose and your passion. And your why, how do you keep your why from turning into a what again?
By being selfish.
Although
Oh,
I'm a big proponent of it. So
we're
you
not
go,
supposed to be
girl.
selfish.
Are you kidding me?
I
Who do you
know.
think you are?
Exactly. I think I'm Rebecca Claeys, and I'm selfish sometimes because it's important for me to be. Because if I'm not, then I'm giving myself away too much.
It's so interesting. Right before we came on, I was listening to an audiobook by Greg Braden, who
Mhm.
um, I'm madly in love with on some level. And I was listening to the, because I have two of them, let me just see, the wisdom codes.
Okay.
And he was talking about that who do you think you are? And he was talking about, in some ways, our worth. We can never be worthy because we keep comparing ourselves to some epic, like unreal beings or something so huge and massive. We're like, we're never that good. So we never have that worth. So it's like that lack of worth is entrenched.
Yeah.
And I'm like that self care aspect of like, who are you to be taking care of yourself first? Well,
Yeah.
I say, go for it. God damn it.
Yeah.
Like,
You are who you are, and nobody can take that away from you.
so when you've turned your why, so when you've turned your what into a why, and then how did, can you
So
describe for
here's
us how this selfishness thing works?
yeah, so here's the kicker. You don't turn your what into a why.
Oh, what?
We're not transforming your what.
Damn
Your what is moving out of the way for your why.
it. Okay.
Okay? That's why it's giving way to your why.
So tell me what your what was and how it became your why, if you don't mind.
So it didn't become my why.
Oh, damn
My
it. What was?
what I know. Like what? Like I am
What?
ripping apart everything that has been taught. I'm just rending it from limb and casting them aside. Um, my what was always number one, I wanted to help people because it made me feel good to help people. Like I'm a nurse.
Yeah.
I work for DHS. I want to make things better for people. But I also want to advance because I know that I can do more good if I can advance, right?
Right.
And there's always a selfish part of me like, it'd be really nice to be comfortable and have a nice house, have a nice car. Like that was my what.
Right.
I wanted the recognition that came along with all of the work that I was pouring into. And in our society, that recognition comes in the form of capital and
Yes, it
status
does.
symbols. Yep.
You know it.
But I had to let that go. That is not my focus. That is not attached to my personal value anymore
Okay.
because it's not important in the grand scheme of things. What's important, though, is what's important to me. What's important to you? What's important to Heather, the person? Not Heather, the partner, not Heather, the friend, not Heather, the parent, or Heather, the coworker, or manager, or any of the other roles that we assume as humans in our lives. Strip all of that away. That's where the selfishness comes in. Disregard everything else.
Me, me, me.
You. What's important to Heather? What do you value at your core without considering anyone else? That's really hard to do.
I was going to say, because a lot of people will say, oh, a garden. Well, really? Or they'll tie that, what is important to me, back to those things that we were just
Mhm.
talking about, like those rewards that we think are important. But how many people get those rewards and aren't happy,
Right.
right? Which is another whole, that's a whole other episode right there. But,
Or
or what?
are you choosing something because you should,
Mm,
as a parent, as a partner,
right.
as a friend?
So when you're digging out what you value, what what tactics have you got for us for that one? Like,
Oh,
my
I have
brain is exploding, right?
exercises. I have exercises, and they're all in the book. Like, I'm even made a workbook to make them easier. Um,
Wow.
it's not easy. It's not fast. It is simple.
You're talking
There's
about the instant gratification world.
I know. This is not instant gratification. This is healing. This is
Right,
not a Band-Aid solution. We're not treating symptoms here, which is
right. You
why
can't
this
take a
doesn't
pill for
only
it.
last 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
Yeah,
How long did it take you to write the book?
10 months.
Well, right. And do you know how long it takes people on average? Uh,
A
how
little
long does
bit
it take a
longer than
C
that.
person to go through it?
A little bit longer than that. I know that the average is over usually 2 years
Wow.
plus. Um, I had some fantastic coaches that helped me along the way and really helped me find clarity in it, and refine the message so that I'm not putting a lot of extra in there. There's not wasted words in this book. It's
Right.
really what you need to know to help you go from overwhelmed, frustrated, burnt out, tired beyond belief to being able to hold your purpose. And I use purpose as an adjective, as a descriptor of yourself. Holding that purpose as a lodestar, a guide to your decisions, to your choices and your actions, and every way that you move in the world. That's where the freedom lies. That's the why, is that
Right.
purpose as an adjective.
So I have two parts of me. One is going, yeah, yeah. And one's going, oh, it sounds tiring just trying.
It is definitely energy consuming.
Right.
And speaking as somebody who has walked this path, and I did all the hard work, I figured it out for you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I made all the missteps and figured out what the actual path is and what things are important to pay attention to. I'm I've got those exercises written out as clearly as I can.
I'm thinking about values. So
Mhm.
I don't know if you've heard of this. It's relatively recent. My coach created a program called Values Inspired Coaching,
Okay.
and I took the certification, of course, because he is
Yeah.
my coach and he has helped me through many things. And it's interesting when you switch that idea of the external rewards of um, what you want
Mhm.
to aligning the things you think you want with what your values are, and everything changes once
Yes.
if you can get to what your values are. And that
Yeah.
process is so interesting because I when I did it, the values that came up, which have just popped out of my head, um, were not what I expected. Even though I thought like I know myself pretty well, but I was like,
Mhm.
oh, really? I got to take that test again.
Yeah.
And do you find that with people that they are what comes up for them is not what they expected?
All the time.
Yes.
All the time. There are things that are hidden from ourselves because we hide them for our own survival. Whether we hid them as children or we hid them as adults growing and learned that those things are not valued in the world and we need to put our focus elsewhere so that we can survive.
Right.
Those values don't go away. They're still a part of you. They still matter to you. They're just not at the surface of your mind
Right.
because you've hidden them away for your survival.
And it's interesting because values, like the word, can encompass so many things.
Mhm.
Like I actually just popped over to Peak. So my top value
Mhm.
is competence, according to
Mm.
this evaluation system. So I don't know what to say about that. I'm just
Did you choose that word or did the system choose it
the
for you?
system chose that word, right? I
Interesting.
didn't choose that word. The system chose that word. Yeah.
Okay.
So the program that I took, you take this very extensive quiz,
Yeah.
and then it tells you your scores of things. And yes, my number one was competence.
Okay.
My number two was risk taking. How do those go together? Whoops.
You have to confidently take risks and competently take risks. Yes.
Oh my goodness, it's so funny. So when they're going through your book and your workbook,
Mhm.
do you list values or do you let people come up with their own words?
I let them come up with their own. And the reason I do is because values are so incredibly diverse and words mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
And it's really important for each of us to come up with a purpose statement that encapsulates ourselves to ourselves. I
Mhm.
cannot give you your purpose statement. You have to come up with it on your own.
You can't do my push-ups.
I can't. I can give you the tools to do it. I can show you how to do it, but you're the one who actually has to do the work.
Right.
One of
That's
the
the
things
mantra of every coach. You've got
I
to
know,
do the work.
I also don't use quizzes. I
Oh,
use inventories.
okay. That's interesting.
My favorite one is an inventory on personal artifacts.
What's a personal artifact?
So, do you have a box somewhere,
I have many
probably in the
boxes.
basement,
It's right over there.
just kind of tucked away that maybe moves from residence to residence with you? You probably don't ever even open it. But if the stuff that was in it was lost or damaged, or forbid you have a house fire and it's gone, you would be absolutely devastated.
Right? We call that the memory box.
Everything in there is a personal artifact.
Okay. Mhm. And I
Everything in
guess they
there,
say something about you.
They do. They're connected to a person, a place, or an event. And those people, places, and events hold meaning to you. So the question is, how are they connected?
You. Aren't you
Not
connected?
necessarily. Well,
Oh.
yes, they're connected through you.
Hmm.
But what else do they have in common? Why are they important? Why do you keep those specific things and not other things in your memory box?
Hmm.
Why would you keep a train stub instead of a concert ticket?
Right. Mine has my taekwondo belts in
Mine does too.
it. Right. We have a lot in common.
We do.
Yeah, exactly. Wow, cool. Now, you're we haven't even talked about it yet. So, is your pop-up podcast tied to the book somehow?
It is kind of.
Okay.
So, um, all of the things that I talk about in my book, the process that I walk through in my book, I've developed a community where we go through this together. We go through the process together. So you don't have to do it on your own. You don't
That
have
makes
to
me
do it all
happy.
by yourself, right?
That's way better.
I know. It's so nice to be able to do things in community. And sometimes one of the biggest challenges to getting to a place of community is simply finding the time to do it. I know that when I am looking at my calendar, or when I was looking at my calendar, sometimes I'd have 2, 3, 4 meetings at a time all day long, every day, and
Right.
it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
I just couldn't handle it. Like, there were meetings that I knew I wasn't going to be going to. There were meetings that I didn't have to have on my calendar, but I kind of wanted to know they were happening because I needed to keep an eye on other things that were happening so that I could put it all together, or keep track of what was going on so I could refer to something else in a different meeting. It was just so much. It was really hard to then find what I was actually looking for. And I'd open up my calendar in the morning, and just like this wave of fatigue would come over me because I just see my entire day gone. There was no time to do the things that allowed me to invest in myself, whether it was myself personally or professionally.
Right.
And I think that added to a lot of the fatigue and burnout that I was experiencing, was that inability to invest in myself. I was just constantly going, constantly producing.
So it's a bit
So,
of for the adrenaline junkie, but not sustainable.
exactly.
Right.
And having that full calendar was one of those key things that I noticed. If I could have trimmed that down, and I did eventually, that would have made it simpler for me to find that time to invest in myself. So, what I'm doing is I'm offering listeners access to an exclusive 3-episode podcast to help you take the first steps toward managing overwhelm and living in your own rhythm rather than in someone else's rhythm. So if you're someone who is chronically double, triple, or even quadruple booked all day long, like I was,
Mhm.
this will give you simple, concrete steps that you can take immediately to clear everything away that doesn't add to your effectiveness. I've only previously taught this to my clients in my $3,600 Plant and Grow program, and they found it so transformative that I knew it needed to reach more people. So if you head over to www.liveinyourrhythm.com, you'll be able to download this private 3-episode podcast series instantly, completely for free. In less than 2 hours, I will show you how to reclaim your calendar and live in your own rhythm and stop paying attention to everybody else's.
It gets to be, that's why we call this back to me.
Yes. Back
Right?
to yourself.
Back to
Invest in
me.
yourself.
I
Invest some
mean,
time in yourself.
it's 3 episodes. It's less than 2 hours.
Yes. It's less than 2 hours.
And boom. You are under control of your schedule.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Live
All of that
in
stress
your
is
rhythm.com.
gone. Yes, liveinyourrhythm.com.
And don't worry, fans. We will put all this in the show notes. Because when I listen to podcasts, I'm usually walking and I'm like, wait, I don't have a piece of paper. So, and if you subscribe, you won't miss anything because it'll always be there. You
There
won't have
you
to go
go.
looking for it again. So, and your book
My book, yes.
is in all the book places.
Yep, you can order my book from any of the book places. You can also order it from my website, which is cleopatrasseeds.com. You can find both my hardcover and paperback book there, as well as that companion workbook that I was talking about.
Oh my God, I love companion workbooks. I'm such a geek. Like, let me
Me
tell
too.
you, when someone says that they have a book and it has a companion workbook, I'm like, oh, what? I get all
Yeah, and
excited. Ah,
the workbook is 14-point font. I made it nice and big so it's easy to read. It's double spaced, so there's lots of room to write and scribble and draw. There are even pages that you need to cut out and cut out shapes. It's like
what?
tactile. It's fun.
Are there stickers?
There aren't stickers. I wasn't able to put stickers in this one.
Okay.
I have that
I'll
planned
bring
for
my
my
own stickers.
next one. Yes,
I'll
bring your own stickers.
bring
You
a
will love it. And there are, you don't have to worry about cutting anything up or ruining anything because there are templates in the back for every single exercise that you might need more sheets of. So you can just copy those and make them, add them to
beautiful.
your journal.
I love it. I love workbooks where I can use my glue stick and my stickers and my
Exactly.
pencil crayons, right? Oh my
I love
gosh.
art class. Art
I
class
feel
is the
like
best.
we could talk and talk and talk, but
I know.
we're going to honor the I know. We're going to talk in a few days anyway. But we're going to honor our fabulous friends out in podcast land. And but before you go, my final question is always the same and not meant to freak people out.
Okay.
Now I'm going to make you hang. No, I'm kidding. Do you have final words of wisdom to share?
Absolutely.
Yay.
Friends, you are a human being, not a human doing. Honor that.
I love that. Perfect. That is the cherry on top. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for coming and hanging out and talking.
Thank you for having
Whoa,
me.
that was a lot, people. Go back and listen to it again because I'm going to. And I'm going to get you to share this with your friends and your loved ones and your strangers on the street. Send it out and let's make the world more awesome, filled with human beings, right? Thank you so much, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Peace out, my friends. I will see you next time. Hi, my friend. Thanks so much for listening to this entire podcast. If you found it useful and you're like me and you like helping others, please feel free to share this. Just give it a like, give it a comment. If you found something useful in it, there's a chance that someone else will find something useful as well. Also, if you have any questions at all, I can absolutely help and I would love to help. You can email me at heather@prosperityflowcoaching.com. If you want more of this awesome content, you can follow me on Instagram, Heather Stewart Coaching. You can follow me on Facebook, Prosperity Flow Coaching. And I have a personal request. I want to help as many people as I can with these podcasts. And if you could give me a review, hopefully a good one, if you could share, if you could send this out into the world, I would truly appreciate it. I hope you have an amazing day. And I hope that you find your way to wellness by getting back to me. Take care, my friend.